The lights of Nexus Prime Station flickered like dying stars against the black void of space. Ambassador Keel stood at the observation deck, her pale blue skin reflecting the soft glow of the navigation panels. The Valerian diplomat had served the Galactic Council for 20 years. But she had never seen anything like the reports flooding her communication system. 3 star systems had gone completely silent in the past month. Not just communications blackouts or technical failures, complete silence. As if entire worlds had simply stopped existing. Keels touched the holographic display with her long, slender fingers. The first system to go dark was New Haven, a mining colony with over 2 million inhabitants. The last transmission had been routine. Other reports, cargo manifests, children's birthday parties. Then nothing. Ambassador, you need to see this, called Lieutenant Brock from across the communication center. The young Draconian officer's scales were pale with worry. His species prided themselves on being fearless warriors, but even Brock looked shaken. Keels walked over to his station. The screen showed a partial transmission from the Kepler 442 system. Static filled most of the recording, but fragments of panicked voices came through. They're huge. The ships are alive. They're eating the stations. Send help, please. Anyone. They're consuming everything. The energy weapons aren't working. Nothing's working. And the transmission cut to silence. Keels felt a chill run down her spine. In 300 years of galactic peace, nothing like this had ever happened. The Council's protection had kept all member species safe from pirates, natural disasters, and territorial disputes. But this sounded like something else entirely. "Have you shown this to Commander Thax?" she asked. Brock's expression darkened. "He says it's probably equipment failure. It's maybe some pirates with stolen military tech. He won't authorize any investigation." Fleet's Commander Thax was the pride of the Draconian Empire. His species had once been great warriors, but centuries of peace had made them comfortable with routine patrols and ceremonial duties. Like most of the Council's military forces, they were trained for peacekeeping, not real warfare. Keel studied the star map again. The 3 dead systems formed a rough line pointing toward the galaxy's inner worlds. If something was moving through space, destroying everything in its path, it was heading toward the most populated sectors. "What about the other species?" asked. "Have the ethereals detected anything with their long-range sensors? They say their meditation networks show disturbances in the cosmic harmony, whatever that means," Brock replied. "The Crystalline Collective reports some strange energy readings, but they think it's just solar flare activity." Keels shook her head. The galaxy's most advanced species were so focused on their peaceful pursuits that they couldn't recognize a real threat. The ethereals spent their time in philosophical contemplation. The crystallines studied mathematical perfection. Oceanic Federation was busy with their underwater cities and poetry contests. None of them remembered how to fight. A real war. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Keels activated her personal communicator, and a hologram appeared, showing a gruff human face. The man looked tired and scared. "This is Captain Alex Torres of the merchant vessel Starbound," the message began. "I'm broadcasting this on all emergency frequencies. I just received a message from an old friend in the Outer Rim. Rico Vance, smuggler and information broker. He barely escaped the destruction of Haven Colony 3 weeks ago." The hologram flickered, as if the transmission was coming from very far away. Rico's message was short, but it scared me more than anything I've heard in 20 years of space. "Travel," he said, and I quote, "They eat planets, Alex. They eat everything. The ships are alive and they're learning. The Council won't listen because they can't believe it. But you humans know about monsters. You're our only hope." The message continued with coordinates and technical data. But Keels was already thinking, humans, the galaxy's strangest species. They came from a world so dangerous that most civilized beings couldn't survive there for more than a few hours. A planet where the weather could kill you, the animals hunted in packs, and even the plants were poisonous. The Council had spent decades trying to civilize humanity. They banned most of Earth's military technology, calling it primitive and unnecessarily destructive. Human weapons use chemical explosives and metal projectiles instead of clean energy beams. Their ships were built like flying fortresses instead of elegant exploration vessels. Most council members found humans disturbing. They were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too willing to fight. In a galaxy that had forgotten warfare, humanity seemed like a dangerous relic from a more violent age. But now, as Keels looked at the reports of entire worlds being consumed by unknown attackers, she wondered if the galaxy's attitude toward humans had been a mistake. She walked back to the main display and pulled up the long-range sensor data. Deep space monitoring stations had detected unusual movement in the void between star systems. Large objects moving at impossible speeds, but the energy signatures were unlike anything in the Council's databases. Brock, I want you to run a full analysis of these sensor readings. Look for patterns, movement vectors, anything that might tell us what we're dealing with. Yes, Ambassador. But Commander Thax has already ordered the sensor technicians to focus on normal shipping lanes. He says we're wasting resources on phantom readings. Keels closed her eyes and tried to think. 3 systems destroyed, millions of beings dead or missing. And the Council's military leadership was treating it like a minor technical problem. She opened her personal files and found Captain Torres's contact information. The human had sent his message through black market communication networks, which meant he was probably operating outside official channels. But right now, unofficial channels might be the only way to get real information. I'm going to contact this human captain, she told Brock. Keep monitoring the deep space sensors. If anything else happens, I want to know immediately. Ambassador, are you sure that's wise? The Council has strict protocols about dealing with unregistered human vessels. Keels looked out at the stars. Again, somewhere out there, something was destroying entire civilizations. The Council's protocols seemed less important than survival. Sometimes wisdom means breaking the rules, Lieutenant. As she prepared to send a message to Captain Torres, the main display lit up with an emergency alert. Another star system had gone silent. The Arcturus colonies, home to 12 million beings, had stopped transmitting. The pattern was becoming clear. Whatever was out there, it was moving faster now, consuming worlds at an increasing pace. And it was heading toward the galaxy's core, where billions of beings lived in peaceful ignorance of the approaching nightmare. Keels began typing her message to the human captain. The galaxy might not be ready to listen, but she was starting to believe that humanity might be the only species that could understand what they were truly facing in the depths of space. Something ancient and hungry continued its relentless advance toward the heart of civilization. The abandoned mining station floating near Titan looked like a graveyard of metal and broken dreams. Captain Alex Torres guided his ship through the debris field, following coordinates that had been passed through a dozen different smugglers and black market dealers. This was the kind of place where people met when they didn't want the Galactic Council. Watching, inside the station's main cargo bay, a strange group had gathered. Lena Vasquez sat cleaning her military rifle, her scarred face showing years of hard fighting. The former Earth Defense Marine had turned mercenary after the Council banned most human military units. Her reputation for getting impossible jobs done had spread across the outer colonies. Dr. Marcus Webb hunched over a portable laboratory setup, studying tissue samples that glowed with an eerie green light. The xenobiologist had been kicked out of the Council's research program for studying dangerous biological warfare applications. His crime had been trying to understand how different species could be used as weapons. Jorik, Steelborn. A massive man with arms like tree trunks, welded broken metal plates back together. The asteroid belt mining foreman had lost 3 mining stations and 200 workers to corporate wars. He understood that sometimes violence was the only way to protect what mattered. So what's this about Torres? Lena asked, not looking. Up from her weapon, Messi said something about the Council finally admitting they need us. Torres activated a holographic projector. Images of destroyed space stations and dead worlds filled the air above them. 5 star systems are completely gone. It's not just damaged or evacuated. Gone, like something ate them. Dr. Webb looked up from his samples. These tissue fragments came from a survivor ship. The crew was found floating in an escape pod near the Vega system. Most of them were dead, but the ship's computer had recorded everything. The hologram changed to show massive organic shapes moving through space. The ships looked alive, their surfaces pulsing like beating hearts. Smaller creatures swarmed around them like insects around a hive. The survivors called them Devourers. Torres continued. They attack without warning, consume everything organic and metal, then move on. The Council's energy weapons can't hurt them. Their hulls adapt to any energy-based attack within minutes. Jorik stopped welding and stared at the images. Big are these things. The largest ones are bigger than space stations, maybe bigger than small moons, and they're heading toward the inner systems. Alina finally looked up from her rifle. What does this have to do with us? The Council made it clear they don't want human military help. We're too primitive for their civilized warfare. Torres smiled grimly. That's about to change. Ambassador Keels contacted me yesterday. She's convinced some council members that they need to try something different. Today, she's presenting a proposal to the full council session. The group exchanged looks. The idea of the council asking for human military help seemed impossible. For 300 years, they had worked to limit human weapons and tactics. Earth's ships were required to carry only defensive systems. Human soldiers could only serve in peacekeeping roles. There's more, Torres said. Dr. Webb has been studying the Devourer tissue samples. Tell them what you found. Webb activated his own display, showing cellular structures that moved and changed. Shape. These organisms are unlike anything in our databases. We can adapt their biology in real time to counter different types of attacks. Energy weapons cause them to develop energy-resistant armor. Radiation makes them stronger. Poison feeds them. But Alina sensed there was more to the story. But they struggle with chaos. Their adaptation takes time and requires patterns too. Analyze. Random, unpredictable attacks confuse their biological responses. Chemical explosives, kinetic weapons, guerrilla tactics, all the things the Council calls primitive warfare, might be exactly what we need. Jorik laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Mean our barbaric human weapons might actually work? It's possible. The Devourers have been consuming advanced civilizations for who knows how long. They've learned to counter sophisticated energy weapons and organize military tactics. But Earth's weapons and strategies might be something they've never encountered before. Torres looked at each of them. Here's the plan. In 2 hours, Ambassador Keels is presenting evidence to the Council and asking them to lift the restrictions. On human military assets, if they agree, we need to be ready to prove that humans can do what their advanced species cannot. And if they don't agree, Alina asked, then we do it anyway. Because if these Devourers reach the core worlds, billions of people are going to die. The group spent the next hour planning. Alina would contact her mercenary networks and start assembling combat units. Jorik would reach out to the mining unions and get access to industrial explosives and heavy equipment. Dr. Webb would continue analyzing Devourer biology to find weaknesses as they worked. Torres received a message from Ambassador Keels. Council session was beginning on Nexus Prime. Ambassador Keels stood before the greatest gathering of species in galactic history. The chamber was a marvel of architecture, with floating platforms for each species' representatives. Ethereals glowed with soft light on their crystal pedestals. The Draconian delegation sat in formation, their scales gleaming. Oceanic representatives floated in water-filled spheres. Honored delegates, Keels began. We face a threat unlike any in recorded history. The evidence is undeniable. 5-star systems have been completely consumed by an unknown enemy.
Ow.
Millions of our citizens are dead or missing. Commander Thax stood up from the military section. Ambassador Keels, while these incidents are concerning, we must not panic. Our preliminary investigations suggest equipment failures or perhaps organized pirate activity. The Council's military forces are more than capable of handling any threat. With respect, Commander, your preliminary investigation is wrong. Keels activated the holographic display, showing the recordings from the destroyed systems. These are not pirates. These are biological weapons of unprecedented scale and intelligence.
Ow.
The chamber filled with sounds of distress as delegates saw the images of devourer ships consuming entire space stations. The elegant ethereals dimmed their light in horror. The crystalline beings' geometric forms trembled. What you're seeing, Keels continued, has adapted to counter every weapon system in our arsenal. Energy weapons, plasma cannons, particle beams, all useless. These creatures learn and adapt faster than we can modify our tactics. A delegate from the Oceanic Federation spoke up, her voice bubbling through the water sphere's communication system. What do you propose we do, Ambassador? Our scientists say these creatures are impossible to defeat with current technology. Keels took a deep breath. This was the moment that would either save the galaxy or end her career. I propose we activate dormant human military assets and give them temporary authority to engage these threats using their conventional warfare doctrine. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. The ethereal's light flickered wildly. Several crystalline beings actually cracked from stress. Commander Thax's voice cut through the noise. Absolutely not. Human military doctrine is barbaric and unpredictable. Their weapons are crude and destructive. Giving them military authority would be like releasing wild animals in a peaceful garden. Commander Keels replied calmly, "Our peaceful garden is being eaten by monsters. Perhaps it's time to call on those who know how to fight monsters." Dr. Nex, the chief scientist from the Ethereal Collective, floated forward. "Ambassador Keels, human warfare is based on destruction and chaos. How can such primitive methods succeed where our advanced technology has failed?" "Because," came a new voice from the chamber's communication system. "Sometimes primitive methods work better than advanced ones." Dr. Webb's voice filled the chamber as his analysis appeared on the main display. The devourer organisms adapt by studying and countering organized patterns. They've encountered thousands of advanced civilizations and learned to defeat their sophisticated weapons. But they've never faced the chaotic, unpredictable nature of human warfare. The chamber fell silent as delegates studied Webb's biological analysis. The data was clear. Devourer adaptation required time and pattern recognition. Chaos and randomness created gaps in their defensive systems. Commander Thax stood again. "Even if this analysis is correct, unleashing human military power could destabilize the entire galactic order. We've spent centuries creating peace through controlled, civilized conflict resolution." "Peace?" Keels asked quietly. "Commander, 5 star systems are gone. The Centauri sector is next in the Devourer's path. It's home to over 1 billion beings. How many civilizations must die before we admit that our peaceful methods aren't working?" The voting began immediately. Species after species cast their decisions. The Draconians voted against, fearing loss of military prestige. The Ethereals voted for, influenced by Dr. Webb's scientific evidence. Crystallines calculated probabilities and voted for. The Oceanics debated for an hour before voting against. As the votes were counted, long-range sensors detected new movement in the outer systems. Devourers were accelerating, their massive bioships heading directly toward the Centauri colonies. The final vote came down to a single delegate, Ambassador Keels herself, representing the Valerian diplomatic corps. "I vote yes," she said simply. "May the ancestors forgive us if we're wrong and save us if we're right." The motion passed by 1 vote. For the first time in 3 centuries, human military assets were authorized for unrestricted combat operations in the cargo bay near Titan. Captain Torres received the message. Alina smiled grimly as she checked her weapons. Jorik powered up his mining equipment. Dr. Webb sealed his biological samples. The galaxy had called on its Deathworlders. Now they had to prove they were worth the risk. Asterisk. Asterisk. The UES Retribution looked like a flying fortress compared to the sleek council ships around it. Captain Alex Torres stood on the bridge of the 200-year-old dreadnought, watching his ragtag fleet prepare for battle. 23 ships in total, none of them designed for what they were about to face. "Captain, we're getting readings on the Devourer fleet," reported Lieutenant Sam Blake from the sensor station. "They're bigger than the reports suggested." The main screen lit up with an image that made even the hardened human crew fall silent. The lead bioship was massive beyond imagination, its organic hull pulsing with dark energy. Smaller creatures, each the size of a destroyer, moved around it like a living cloud. "How big is that thing?" Torres asked. "Computer estimates it's roughly the size of Luna, sir. Maybe bigger." Commander Lisa Hartwell's voice crackled over the communication system. From her experimental Corvette Stormcrow, "Alex, my sensors are showing at least 50 smaller bioships. This isn't a raiding party. This is an invasion fleet."
Ow.
Torres looked around his bridge crew. They were volunteers from across human space, former military officers who had been forced into retirement by council regulations, merchant captains who had lost friends to pirate attacks, engineers who had spent decades maintaining ships instead of building weapons. All ships. This is Torres. We knew this wasn't going to be easy. The council's best fleets couldn't scratch these things with energy weapons, but we've got something they don't have. "What's that, sir?" came a voice from one of the mining ships. "Know how to fight dirty?" The Devourer fleet moved with disturbing grace through space. The massive lead ship, which the humans had designated Alpha Prime, seemed to scan the approaching human vessels. Smaller bioships broke away from the main formation, moving to intercept. "Lena, you ready?" Torres called to the mercenary commander. "On the converted cargo hauler Warhammer. Born ready, Captain." "My boys are loaded for bear with everything we could carry. Industrial explosives, mining charges, and some special surprises we picked up from the asteroid belt." Lena Vasquez checked her tactical display. Her ship carried 40 mercenaries, armed with weapons that the Council had banned decades ago. Chemical explosives, kinetic rifles, and close combat gear designed for boarding actions. Everything the civilized galaxy considered too brutal for modern warfare. "Jorik, how are your mining crews doing?" Torres asked. The gruff voice of Jorik Steelborn came through the communication system, ready to show these aliens what real work looks like. "We've got enough industrial charges to crack an asteroid in half. These bioships can eat energy. Let's see how they handle good old-fashioned explosions." Dr. Marcus Webb was aboard the research vessel Galileo, monitoring the approaching enemy fleet. His sensors were tracking the bioships' behavior patterns, looking for weaknesses in their adaptive systems. "Captain Torres, I'm seeing something interesting. The bioships are trying to scan our weapons, but they seem confused. Their adaptation systems are designed to counter energy-based attacks. They don't know what to make of our chemical explosives and kinetic weapons. Good. Let's keep them confused. All ships, implement tactical plan. Chaos." No predictable attack patterns. Make it impossible for them to figure out what we're doing. The human fleet spread out in seemingly random directions. Mining ships accelerated toward the enemy using gravity slings around asteroids. Military vessels feinted attacks, then changed course at the last second. Merchant ships released cargo, containers that drifted on ballistic trajectories. The first bioship to engage was roughly the size of a council cruiser. Its surface rippled with organic sensors as it approached the mining vessel Iron Mountain. The alien ship fired living projectiles that moved like guided missiles. "This is Captain Roy Nash on Iron Mountain. Taking fire from organic weapons. They're trying to latch onto our hull. Use the mining charges, Roy. Close-range detonation." Nash's ship released a spread of industrial explosives, each one timed to detonate at different intervals. To bioships. surface began to adapt, hardening against the first explosion. But before it could complete the process, 6 more charges exploded in rapid succession. The alien vessel shuddered, its organic hull torn open by the chaotic sequence of explosions. Green fluid leaked into space as the bioship's adaptive systems struggled to cope with the random damage patterns. Direct hit. The mining charges work. The bioship is damaged and pulling back. But the victory was short-lived. More bioships swarmed toward the human fleet, and Alpha Prime began to move forward with terrifying purpose. Elena's ship, Warhammer, engaged to smaller bioships simultaneously. Her mercenaries used magnetic grapples to attach explosive charges directly to the alien hulls. The bioships tried to adapt, growing armor plates over the attachment points. But Elena's people detonated the charges before the adaptation could complete. This is like fighting in zero-G construction sites, she reported. These things adapt fast, but they need time. Hit them quick and random, and they can't keep up. Commander Hartwell's corvette Stormcrow tested the new kinetic weapons against a medium-sized bioship. The alien vessel's hull hardened against the first kinetic rounds, but the follow-up shots used different materials and velocities. The kinetic rounds are working, but barely. These things learn fast. We need to keep changing our approach. Dr. Webb was monitoring the battle from his research ship, tracking how the bioships adapted to different attack methods. Captain Torres, I'm seeing a pattern. The bioships share information through some kind of biological network. When one learns to counter an attack, they all learn. How long does the learning process take? For energy weapons, almost instantly. For our weapons, about 30 to 40 seconds. But once they adapt, the adaptation spreads to the entire fleet within minutes. Torres realized the terrible math of their situation. The human fleet had maybe one chance to use each type of weapon before the entire Devourer fleet became immune to it. After that, their technological advantage would disappear. Listen carefully. We've got maybe one good shot with each weapon type before they adapt. Make every shot count. The battle became a desperate race against biological adaptation. Human ships fired nuclear torpedoes that punched through bioship holes before the aliens could develop radiation shielding. Mining crews detonated shaped charges that focused explosive force in ways the bioships couldn't predict. Elena led the most dangerous part of the operation. Her boarding teams used modified construction mechs to break into damaged bioships, planting nuclear charges inside their organic cores. This is Elena. I'm inside one of these things. It's like being inside a living creature. The walls are moving. And there's some kind of immune system trying to attack us. Plant the charges and get out, Torres ordered. Already done. 30 seconds to detonation. The bioship exploded from within, its organic structure unable to contain the nuclear explosion. But even as it died, the other bioships were learning. From its destruction, developing internal defenses against boarding actions, Alpha Prime had remained at the edge of the battle, watching and learning. Now, it moved forward with deadly purpose. Its massive bulk dwarfed even the largest human ships. Its surface was covered with new adaptations based on everything it had observed. Captain Alpha Prime is targeting us directly, reported Lieutenant Blake. The massive bioship fired a weapon unlike anything they had seen before. Instead of living projectiles, it released a cloud of organic matter that moved like an intelligent swarm. Evasive maneuvers, all power to engines. The Retribution twisted through space, trying to avoid the approaching bioweapon. But the organic swarm followed every move, learning their evasion patterns and adapting its approach. Sir, the swarm is going to hit us in 20 seconds. Torres looked at his crew. They had fought well, but they were facing an enemy that learned from every attack, every maneuver, every strategy. The bioships were becoming immune to human weapons with each passing minute. All ships prepare for ramming speed. If we can't outthink them, we'll outstubborn them. Captain, that's suicide. Hartwell protested over the communication system. Maybe, but it's also something they won't expect. These bioships have been fighting advanced civilizations for who knows how long. But I bet they've never faced opponents. crazy enough to ram them with nuclear warheads. The human fleet began its final charge toward Alpha Prime. Mining ships, military vessels, and merchant craft all accelerated toward the massive bioship. Some carried nuclear warheads, others were loaded with industrial charges. A few were simply planning to ram at maximum velocity. Alpha Prime's surface rippled with confusion as its sensors tried to understand what the humans were doing. The bioship's adaptation systems were designed to counter weapons and tactics, not suicidal desperation. As the human ships closed the distance, Torres made a decision that would change everything. He activated the fleet's emergency broadcast system, sending human military data to every species in the galaxy. "This is Captain Torres to all Council forces. We're transmitting our weapon specifications, tactical doctrines, and combat strategies. Use them. Modify them. These bioships can adapt to energy weapons, but they struggle with chaos and unpredictability." The transmission reached Council fleets across the galaxy. Draconian commanders began retrofitting their ships with kinetic weapons. Crystalline mathematicians calculated optimal firing patterns for chemical explosives. Even the peaceful ethereals started learning the human art of unpredictable warfare. But in the Centauri system, the battle was reaching its climax. Alpha Prime fired everything it had at the approaching human fleet, filling space with organic weapons and biomatter clouds. Torres watched his ships disappear one by one under the massive alien assault. But each human vessel that died bought precious seconds for the others to get closer to their target. The Retribution shuddered as organic weapons struck its hull. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as systems failed. Torres kept the ship on course toward Alpha Prime's massive bulk. 10 seconds to impact, reported Lieutenant Blake. "It's been an honor serving with you all," Torres said to his crew. ***, the explosion of the UES Retribution lit up space like a dying star. Captain Torres had rammed his ship into Alpha Prime's hull, detonating every nuclear warhead aboard. The massive bioship shuddered, its organic surface torn open by the blast. But it continued moving forward. On the bridge of the Stormcrow, Commander Lisa Hartwell watched the sacrifice of her friend, with tears in her eyes. But there was no time to mourn. The battle was far from over, and something incredible was happening across the galaxy. "Commander, we're receiving transmission confirmations from over 40 different species," reported her communication officer. "They're all requesting copies of our tactical data." Human military broadcasts had reached every corner of civilized space. Captain Torres' final transmission was spreading like wildfire through the Council's communication networks, and species that had never worked together were suddenly sharing weapons technology and battle plans. "Ma'am, the Draconian Third Fleet is requesting specifications for kinetic weapons. They want to retrofit their ships immediately." Hartwell smiled grimly. Commander Thax had spent years calling human weapons primitive. Now his people were begging to learn how to use them. "Send them everything we have, and patch me through to the Crystalline Collective. Their mathematical precision, combined with our chaos theory, might give us an edge." Across the galaxy, the response was immediate and desperate. The elegant Draconian cruisers began installing crude kinetic cannons alongside their energy weapons. The crystalline beings used their geometric perfection to calculate optimal explosion patterns for human style. Chemical charges. On the ethereal homeworld, the peaceful philosophers did something they had never done before. They began studying the art of war. Their telepathic abilities allowed them to coordinate chaotic battle strategies across vast distances. Even the Oceanic Federation, despite their peaceful nature, began converting their exploration vessels into fighting ships. They're fluid-based. Technology proved surprisingly effective at creating unpredictable weapon systems. But the most surprising response came from Dr. Marcus Webb aboard the research vessel Galileo. While the battle raged around him, he had been analyzing captured devourer tissue samples. What he discovered changed everything. "This is Dr. Webb to all human vessels. I've made a breakthrough. The devourers aren't just random destroyers running from something." Elena Vasquez, still leading boarding parties against the smaller bioships, paused in her assault. The tissue samples show signs of extreme adaptation stress. These creatures have been modifying themselves for millions of years, not to attack, but to survive. They're refugees, not conquerors. Webb's research data flooded the communication networks. The Devourer bioships weren't just consuming matter for food or resources. They were collecting genetic information, storing the biological patterns of every species they encountered. They're trying to preserve something, Webb continued. Every species they've consumed, every world they've stripped bare, they've kept records of it all. They're like a living library of extinct civilizations. Commander Hartwell processed this information while dodging organic weapons fire. If they're preservers, why are they destroying everything? Because they're terrified. Deep space sensors are picking up something approaching from the galactic edge. Something that makes the Devourer fleet look like a scouting party. The revelation sent shockwaves through the combined human and council forces. If the Devourers were running from something worse, what did that mean for the galaxy? Admiral Kate Morrison chose that moment to arrive with the Earth Defense Force's hidden fleet. The EU's vengeance appeared at the edge of the system, followed by dozens of ships that officially didn't exist. For 3 centuries, Earth had been building a secret deep space navy hidden from council oversight. This is Admiral Morrison to all forces. We've been monitoring the situation. It's time to show the galaxy what humans do best. The Earth fleet was unlike anything the council had ever seen. The ships were built for war, not exploration. They carried weapons that had been banned for centuries. Nuclear torpedo launchers, kinetic bombardment systems, and experimental energy weapons that combined human engineering with captured alien technology. Admiral, we've got a problem, Hartwell reported. The Devourers aren't our real enemy. They're running from something worse, I know, Commander. Our long-range sensors detected it an hour ago. Multiple objects approaching from dark space. They're big, they're fast, and they're not organic. The combined fleet began a new strategy. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourers, they started trying to communicate with them. The Ethereals used their telepathic abilities to reach out to the bioships. Collective consciousness. Elena's boarding teams found themselves in a strange situation. Instead of planting explosives, they were trying to establish communication with the bioship's internal systems. The organic corridors pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed almost like a language. This is Elena. I'm inside one of the medium bioships. The walls are showing me pictures. Images of dead galaxies, consumed worlds, and something dark. Moving between the stars. Dr. Webb worked frantically to decode the biological communication system. The Devourers had been trying to warn the galaxy, but their method of communication involved consuming and analyzing other species. They couldn't understand why the galaxy's inhabitants were resisting their attempts to preserve them. I've got partial translation working, Webb reported. The bioships are showing us their memories. They've been fleeing across the universe for millions of years. Their original galaxy was consumed by something they called the Void Reapers. The name sent chills through every species in the fleet. The Void Reapers were ancient machines that traveled between galaxies, consuming all life and converting it into energy. They had destroyed dozens of galaxies across the universe. And now they were approaching the Milky Way. Admiral Morrison made the decision that would define humanity's role in galactic history. All human vessels prepare to offer alliance terms to the Devourer fleet. We're not fighting destroyers anymore. We're fighting fellow survivors. The negotiation took place in the most unlikely setting imaginable. Inside Alpha Prime's organic command center, Captain Torres had somehow survived the nuclear explosion. His ship's bridge had been consumed by the bioship's healing systems. But instead of killing him, the organic matter had kept him alive. Elena led a rescue team into the massive bioship's heart. They found Torres connected to a web of organic cables. He was conscious, but changed. His mind linked to the Devourer collective consciousness. "Elena, I can see what they've seen," Torres whispered. "Entire galaxies turned to dust. Billions of species extinct. The Void Reapers don't just kill. They erase everything that ever existed." Through Torres' connection, the humans began to understand the full scope of the threat. The Devourers had been collecting genetic samples and cultural records not out of malice, but out of desperate hope. They were trying to preserve something of the civilizations they encountered before the Void Reapers. Arrived. Dr. Webb analyzed the new data flowing through the biolink. The Void Reapers will arrive in approximately 18 hours. Their advanced scouts are already entering the outer system. Admiral Morrison coordinated the most unlikely alliance in galactic history. Human weapons specialists worked alongside draconian engineers to modify bioship hulls with kinetic armor. Crystalline mathematicians calculated optimal formation patterns for the combined organic and mechanical fleet. The Ethereals established permanent telepathic links between human commanders and Devourer consciousness nodes. For the first time in millions of years, the bioships had allies who understood their mission. Alina emerged from Alpha Prime carrying genetic samples from a dozen extinct species. The Devourers have been carrying the last remnants of destroyed civilizations for millions of years. They're not monsters. They're the galaxy's memory. The combined fleet began preparing for the real battle. Human ships integrated Devourer bioarmor that could adapt to energy weapons. The bioships installed human-designed kinetic weapons that could punch through mechanical armor. Commander Hartwell found herself in command of a hybrid cruiser, half-human technology and half-living bioship. The organic systems responded to her thoughts while the mechanical weapons provided the destructive power humanity was known for. "This is impossible," she muttered, watching her ship's living hull repair battle damage in real time. "Impossible is what humans do best," Admiral Morrison replied over the communication system. "We've got 17 hours to turn this mixed fleet into a fighting force capable of stopping galaxy-killing machines." The preparation was unlike anything in recorded history. Human engineers learned to work with living metal. Devourer bioships practiced formations with mechanical vessels. The peaceful species of the Council found themselves learning not just human weapons, but human philosophy. Jorik, Steelborn, the mining foreman, summed up the situation perfectly. "We're about to fight machines that eat galaxies, using ships that are half alive and half dead, with allies we were trying to kill yesterday. This is either going to be the greatest victory in history or the most spectacular failure." As the combined fleet took position at the edge of the system, long-range sensors detected the approaching Void Reaper advance force. The machines were vast, their hulls reflecting no light. Moving through space like holes in reality itself, Admiral Morrison opened communication to the entire fleet. "In 18 hours, we face an enemy that has destroyed countless civilizations, but they've never faced Deathworlders fighting alongside the very species they thought they had already conquered. Today we show the universe that some things are worth dying for." The Void Reapers emerged from dark space like nightmares made real. Their massive forms blocked out entire star fields, mechanical constructs so large they seemed to bend reality around them. Admiral Kate Morrison watched from the bridge of the UES Vengeance as her sensors tried to measure the approaching enemy. "Fleet! How many?" she asked her tactical officer. 17 confirmed contacts, Admiral. "The largest one is roughly the size of a small planet. The energy readings are off our scales." Captain Torres, still connected to Alpha Prime's biosystems, felt the terror radiating from the Devourer collective consciousness. Through the organic link, he experienced memories spanning millions of years, galaxy after galaxy consumed by these same machines, entire civilizations erased as if they had never existed. "They don't just destroy," he reported to the combined fleet. "They unmake things. Every planet they touch becomes empty space. Every species they encounter is deleted from existence." Commander Lisa Hartwell gripped the controls of her hybrid ship, feeling the living hull pulse with nervous energy. Around her, the strangest fleet in galactic history prepared for battle. Human dreadnoughts flew alongside organic bioships. Crystalline mathematical vessels moved in perfect formation with chaotic draconian fighters. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. We face an enemy that has never been defeated, but they've also never faced what we've become. Today, we fight not as separate species, but as one galaxy united." The Void Reapers moved with terrifying purpose. Their lead ship, a construct the size of Earth's moon, began charging weapons that glowed with the light of dead stars. Smaller machine units, each larger than a council cruiser, swarmed around it like mechanical insects. Elena Vasquez prepared her boarding teams for what might be the last battle of their lives. Her mercenaries carried weapons designed by human engineers and grown by Devourer biotechnology. Chemical explosives that could adapt and change, kinetic rounds that learned from each shot fired. This is Elena to all boarding parties. We're going into machines that have been killing for millions of years, but we've got something they don't expect. We've got humans who refuse to stay dead, and aliens who've learned how to fight dirty. Dr. Marcus Webb worked frantically in his laboratory, now integrated with Devourer biosystems. He was creating something that had never existed before, a biological virus designed to attack mechanical systems. The hybrid technology was beyond anything either species could have created alone. Admiral, I've got a weapon ready. It's a biomechanical virus that should confuse their adaptive systems. But I need to get it into their central command matrix. The first exchange of fire lit up the void between galaxies. The Void Reapers launched weapons that tore holes in space itself, while the combined fleet responded with everything from nuclear missiles to living projectiles that thought for themselves. Jork Steelborn commanded a mining ship that had been transformed into a mobile weapon platform. His industrial charges were now guided by crystalline mathematics and powered by ethereal energy manipulation. The explosions they created were works of art and destruction combined. Direct hit on Reaper Unit 7, he reported. But it's already adapting. The whole damage is healing itself. The battle quickly became a nightmare of adaptation and counter-adaptation. The Void Reapers modified their defenses to counter human kinetic weapons, so the Devourer bioships grew new types of projectiles. When the machines learned to absorb energy attacks, the crystalline vessels created geometric patterns that focused explosive force in ways that couldn't be predicted. Alpha Prime moved through the battle like a living mountain, its massive bulk, absorbing punishment that would have destroyed any normal ship. Captain Torres, linked to its consciousness, felt every hit like a physical blow. But he also felt something else. Hope. The Void Reapers are confused, he reported. They've never encountered biological and mechanical cooperation before. Their analysis systems can't handle our hybrid tactics. Admiral Morrison seized the moment. All ships, implement maximum chaos protocol. No patterns, no predictable attacks. Make it impossible for them to adapt. The galaxy's fleet became a storm of controlled madness. Human ships fired randomly while Draconian vessels provided precision strikes. Oceanic craft flowed like liquid metal, while ethereal vessels struck with telepathic coordination. The Devourers grew new weapons in real time, adapting to each moment of the battle. But the Void Reapers were learning too. Their massive command ship began producing new types of machine units, each one designed to counter specific alliance tactics. The battle was becoming a race between organic adaptation and mechanical evolution. Elena's boarding parties launched their desperate assault on the enemy command ship. Using biomechanical transport pods grown by the Devourers, they penetrated the machine's hull and found themselves in a nightmare landscape of grinding gears and pulsing energy conduits. This place is like the inside of a giant machine, she reported. But it's alive somehow. The walls are watching us. Dr. Webb's virus was ready, but delivering it required getting to the very heart of the enemy command structure. Elena's teams fought through mechanical defenders that learned from every human they killed, adapting their tactics with each encounter. The battle outside reached a critical point. The combined fleet was holding its own, but barely. More void. Reaper units were arriving from dark space, and the Alliance ships were taking severe casualties. Commander Hartwell made a decision that would be remembered. Throughout galactic history, her hybrid ship, now more bioorganism than machine, began a suicide run toward the largest Void Reaper construct. This is Hartwell to all vessels. I'm going to ram the command ship. The biosystems think they can survive the impact and deliver Dr. Webb's virus directly to their core. Elisa, don't do this, Admiral Morrison ordered. We'll find another way. There is no other way, Admiral. Besides, Someone needs to show these machines what human stubbornness looks like. Hartwell's ship accelerated toward the massive enemy construct, its living hull adapting in real time to absorb the incoming defensive fire. The Void Reaper tried everything in its arsenal, but the hybrid vessel kept coming, its biosystems healing, damage faster than it could be inflicted. The impact was spectacular. Hartwell's ship penetrated deep into the enemy construct's core, its biosystems spreading through the mechanical infrastructure like a living infection. Dr. Webb's virus began its work, turning the machine's own adaptive systems against itself. Elena's boarding teams reached the central command matrix just as the virus took hold. The mechanical systems began to fail, their perfect logic corrupted by biological chaos. But the team faced one final challenge: the machine's central intelligence, a construct that had supervised the destruction of entire galaxies. "This is bigger than anything we've faced," Elena reported. "It's like fighting a god made of metal and math." Captain Torres, still linked to Alpha Prime, made his own desperate choice. He severed his connection to the bioship and transferred his consciousness directly into the enemy machine, carrying Dr. Webb's virus with him. "Torres, what are you doing?" Admiral Morrison demanded. "What humans do best, Admiral. I'm refusing to give up." Inside the machine consciousness, Torres faced the collective intelligence of the Void Reapers. It was ancient beyond measure, efficient beyond imagination, and completely without mercy. But it had never encountered something like human determination combined with biological adaptation. The virus spread through the machine networks, but Torres was the carrier, the human element that made the biological weapon truly chaotic. His memories of Earth, of friendship, of sacrifice, infected the cold logic of the machines with something they couldn't process: hope. The effect rippled through the entire Void Reaper fleet. Their perfect coordination broke down as each unit struggled to understand the biological chaos spreading through their networks. Ships that had moved with mechanical precision began to malfunction and collide with each other. Admiral Morrison seized the opportunity. All ships, full assault. They're vulnerable now. The combined fleet pressed their attack with everything they had. Human nuclear warheads tore through weakened machine hulls. Devourer bioweapons found gaps in adaptive armor. The peaceful species of the galaxy unleashed weapons they had never dreamed of using. But the greatest victory was won in the digital realm. Torres, his consciousness scattered through the enemy network, began a final act of sabotage. He planted human memories in the machine databases, images of children playing, lovers embracing, friends sacrificing themselves for each other. The Void Reapers, designed to process and eliminate all organic life, couldn't handle the complexity of human emotion. Their systems crashed one by one as they tried to analyze feelings that had no logical framework. The enemy command ship exploded in a cascade of failing systems. The other Void Reaper units, cut off from their central control, began to shut down or flee back into dark space. As the battle ended, the survivors counted their losses. Captain Torres was gone, his consciousness dissolved into the machine networks. Commander Hartwell had died in her ramming attack. Thousands of brave beings from dozens of species had given their lives, but the galaxy survived. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Keels stood before a changed Galactic Council. Humans now sat as equal members alongside species that had once considered them primitive. The Devourers, no longer destroyers but guardians of galactic memory, shared their preserved knowledge with all who wished to learn. Elena Vasquez founded the first interspecies military academy, teaching combined tactics to the next generation of galactic defenders. Dr. Webb continued his research, developing new biomechanical technologies that combine the best of organic and artificial intelligence. Admiral Morrison became the first human to command a truly galactic fleet, with ships and crews from every member species. The galaxy had learned that diversity was strength, and that sometimes the most primitive methods were the most effective. The story ended not with conquest, but with understanding. The galaxy had faced its greatest threat and survived by becoming something new, a unified civilization that celebrated both peace and the capacity for war. and somewhere in the depths of space, monitoring stations watched for new threats, crewed by beings who had learned the most important lesson of all. When the galaxy cries out for help, there will always be those willing to answer with steel and fire. The blue sun of Kepler 4-4 to be cast long shadows across the crystal cities of Volani Prime. Commander Yolande stood at the observation deck of the Planetary Defense Center,
watching the peaceful daily life of his people below.
Children played in the floating gardens while their parents worked in harmony with nature and technology. The Volani had built a perfect society over thousands of years, one without war or violence. But peace was about to end. "Commander, urgent message from the outer monitoring stations," called Officer Dex from across the control room. His voice carried fear that made Yolande's blood run cold. Yolande walked quickly to the main display screen. The image showed dark shapes, moving through space, too many to count. Each ship was massive, built for destruction rather than exploration. The Havrock Empire had found them. "How long do we have?" Yolande asked, though he already knew the answer would not be good. 6 months, maybe less, Dex replied. "The Havrock fleet is moving at full speed toward our system. Our scouts report over 500 warships." Yolande closed his eyes. The Volani had no weapons, no warships, no way to fight. They were scientists, artists, and philosophers. They had never needed to learn the art of war. "Send messages to all our colonies," Yolande ordered. "Tell them to prepare evacuation ships. Cannot fight the Havrock, but we can try to save our people." But even as he spoke, Yolande knew it was hopeless. The Havrock Empire had destroyed over 200 worlds. They took what they wanted and enslaved or killed the rest. No one had ever successfully fought them. 3 hours later, Yolande sat in an emergency council meeting with the planet's leaders. Elder Kira, the oldest and wisest of their people, spoke first. "We have one choice," she said slowly. "We must ask for help." "From whom?" asked Council Leader Vex. "Every species in the galaxy fears the Havrock. No one will risk their own worlds to save ours." Elder Kira looked at the star charts on the wall. "There are new signals from the far edge of the galaxy. Young species called humans. They come from a world called Earth." "What do we know about them?" Yolande asked. "Very little," Kira admitted. "But their signals show they have advanced technology. And their world seems to be what the old texts call a death world, a planet so dangerous that it creates strong survivors." The council fell silent. Death worlds were rare, and the species that came from them were often powerful warriors. But they were also unpredictable. "We have no choice," Yolande said finally. "Prepare the strongest signal we can send. If these humans are warriors, maybe they will help us." Meanwhile, millions of light years away, Dr. Mira Blackwood sat in the deep space communication array on Earth's moon. She had been listening to the stars for 15 years, hoping to find proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. Tonight, she was about to get her wish. The signal came at 2:47 a.m., Earth time. It was strong, clearly artificial, and unlike anything she had ever heard. Her hands shook as she began recording and analyzing the transmission. "This is incredible," she whispered to herself. The signal was complex, mathematical, and beautiful. It was definitely from an intelligent species. She worked for 3 days straight, barely sleeping, as she tried to decode the message. The breakthrough came when she realized the signal contained universal mathematical constants, the same numbers that would be true anywhere in the universe. When the translation was complete, Dr. Blackwood stared at her screen in shock. It was a cry for help from a species called the Volani. They were peaceful people being attacked by something called the Havrock Empire. They needed military assistance, and they needed it fast. She picked up her phone and called Admiral Kane Torres, the commander of Earth's 7th Battle Fleet. "Admiral, you need to see this immediately," she said 2 hours later. Admiral Torres stood in the communication center, reading the translated message. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars from many battles. He had fought pirates in the asteroid belt and rebel colonies on Mars. But this was different. "Are you certain this is real?" he asked Dr. Blackwood. "Yes, sir," The signal is definitely from an alien species. They're asking for help against something called the Havrok Empire. Studied the message again. The Villani had included star charts showing their location and the approaching enemy fleet. They had also included basic information about their technology and society. They're pacifists, Torres said after reading.
Yes.
They have no weapons. No. Military. They're like sheep asking wolves for protection. Will we help them? Dr. Blackwood asked. Torres was quiet for a long moment. That's not my decision to make. The next day, the message was presented to Earth's High Command. The room was filled with generals, admirals, and politicians. They had been dreaming of this moment, first contact with an alien species, but no one had expected it to come as a request for military aid. The signal is real, confirmed Dr. Blackwood. The Villani are peaceful people facing extinction. They've calculated that the Havrok fleet will reach their system in 6 months. General Patricia Stone, the head of Earth's military, spoke first. We know nothing about these Havrok. They could be more advanced than us. This could be a trap. Or it could be humanity's chance to make allies in the galaxy, replied Admiral Torres. The Villani have advanced technology. It could be valuable friends. The debate continued for hours. Some argued that Earth should stay hidden, that getting involved in alien wars was too dangerous. Others believed that helping the Villani was the right thing to do. Finally, President Martinez made the decision. We will send a fleet to assist the Villani. Admiral Torres, you will command the mission. Take your best ships and your most experienced crews. Torres nodded. How many ships? Can I take? Everything you need, the president replied. This is humanity's first contact with alien life. We will not let them face extinction alone. 1 week later, Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Vengeance. Around him, the 7th Battle Fleet was preparing for the longest journey in human history. 50 warships, carrying humanity's most advanced weapons, and 15,000 of Earth's finest warriors. All ships report ready, Admiral, announced Captain Rex Morrison from the communication station. Torres looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a peaceful species was waiting for help. Somewhere else, an empire of conquerors was preparing. To destroy them, begin jump sequence, Torres ordered. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can do. The fleet disappeared into hyperspace, beginning humanity's first interstellar war. None of them knew that this mission would change the galaxy forever, or that Earth's reputation as a death world was about to be proven in the most dramatic way possible. The massive human fleet moved through hyperspace like a pack of metal wolves hunting in the dark. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace through the main view screen. They had been traveling for 2 weeks and still had months to go before reaching Villani space. Admiral, incoming message from Earth's command, announced Lieutenant Commander Nova. Sterling from the communications station. Torres walked over to the secure communication panel. The message was brief, but troubling. Earth's deep space sensors had detected new signals from the Villani system. The Havrok fleet was moving faster than expected, sir. What does this mean? Asked Captain Rex Morrison, the ship's commanding officer. It means we're racing against time, Torres replied. The Havrok will reach the Villani in 4 months, not 6. We need to push our engines harder. Chief Engineer Pavel Volkov shook his head. Admiral, we're already running at 90% capacity. If we push harder, we risk damaging the hyperspace drives. Torres looked at the star charts again. Do it anyway. We didn't come this far to arrive too late. As the fleet increased speed, the crews prepared for the unknown.
Major Lisa.
Chen walked through the Marine barracks on the EU's Terran Hammer, inspecting her soldiers. These were Earth's finest warriors, trained in the harsh environments of Earth's colonies and battle zones. Listen up, Chen called to her troops. We're heading into humanity's first alien war. We don't know what we're going to face, but I know. One thing, we're the children of Earth, and Earth doesn't raise weaklings. Sergeant Jake Rodriguez raised his hand. Major, what do we know about these Havrok? Not much, Chen admitted. But we know they've conquered over 200 worlds. They use fear in overwhelming numbers to win their battles. They've never faced humans before. She walked to the wall display showing images of Earth. Remember where we come from? Earth is a death world, a planet so dangerous that most species would die just trying to survive there. We have ice ages, volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, earthquakes, and deadly animals. We survived all of that and became the dominant species. The Marines nodded. They had all heard the stories of humanity's violent past, wars that lasted centuries, civilizations that rose and fell, species that went extinct while humans adapted and survived. The HFY think they're apex predators, Chen continued. They're about to learn what real predators look like. Meanwhile, in the fleet's research section, Dr. Emma Watson studied the limited data they had about both alien species. The Villani seemed peaceful, almost fragile compared to humans. Their technology was advanced, but focused on science and exploration, not warfare. The HFY were different. Every report described them as brutal conquerors who showed no mercy. They were physically strong, technologically advanced, and had never lost a major battle. Dr. Watson, what's your assessment? Asked Admiral Torres as he visited the research lab. The HFY are formidable, but they have weaknesses, Watson replied. They rely on fear and superior numbers. Their tactics are predictable. They overwhelm their enemies with massive fleets and brutal attacks. And the Villani, they're highly intelligent but completely peaceful. They've never developed weapons or military tactics. They're everything. We're not. Torres nodded thoughtfully. That might be exactly what we need. Intelligence officers report to the briefing room. In the briefing room, Torres addressed his senior staff. Need to understand what makes humans different.
Hey.
Commander Blake Foster, the fleet's military historian, stepped forward. Sir, it goes back to Earth's environment. Most inhabited worlds in the galaxy are stable, peaceful places. Earth is chaos. We have weather that can kill, animals that hunt us, diseases that wipe out entire populations. He activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. Humans survived by becoming adaptable. When the ice ages came, we learned to make fire and build shelters. When large predators hunted us, we developed weapons and tactics. When diseases killed our people, we developed medicine. The display showed images of human warfare throughout history. Ancient battles with swords and shields, medieval sieges, world wars with millions of casualties, and finally space battles. Around Earth's colonies, we're the only species that turned warfare into an art form, Foster continued. Most aliens fight for territory or resources. Humans fight for ideas, for survival, for the future of our species. We don't just win battles. We adapt, learn, and become stronger, Captain Morrison asked. How does this help us against the HFY? Admiral Torres smiled grimly, because the HFY have never faced a species like us. They conquer peaceful worlds and weak civilizations. They use the same tactics over and over because they always work. He pointed to the tactical display. Humans don't fight like other species. We're unpredictable, use guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare, and adaptive strategies. We turn every disadvantage into an advantage. The weeks passed as the fleet traveled deeper into space. The crews trained constantly, preparing for battles they couldn't imagine. Human pilots practiced combat maneuvers that would be impossible for most alien species to survive. The GI forces alone would kill most non-humans. In the weapons bay, technicians worked on humanity's secret advantages, kinetic weapons that fired projectiles at incredible speeds, nuclear missiles that could destroy entire ships, and energy weapons designed to punch through the strongest shields. The beauty of human weapons, explained Weapons Officer Tom Bradley, is that they're simple and effective. Most aliens develop complex technologies that can be disrupted or countered. Human weapons are basic physics, mass, velocity, and explosive force. He showed the crew a simple railgun round. This piece of metal, fired at the right speed, can penetrate any known armor. Doesn't need special technology or exotic materials, just pure kinetic energy. The Marines trained in combat scenarios, learning to fight in zero gravity and hostile environments. Major Chen pushed them hard, knowing that their lives might depend on their preparation. Remember she told them during a training exercise? Most alien species evolved on safe worlds. They've never had to develop the reflexes and instincts that we have. They think in terms of overwhelming force. They think in terms of survival. As the fleet approached the halfway point of their journey, Admiral Torres received another message. From the Villani was a detailed report on Havrock tactics and technology. Along with desperate pleas for help, the Villani had been monitoring the approaching Havrock fleet. The enemy was using standard intimidation tactics, broadcasting messages of surrender, demands, and threatening total destruction. It was the same approach they had used on 200 other worlds. "They don't know what's coming," Torres said. To his senior staff, the Havrock expect the Villani to surrender or die. They don't expect anyone to fight back, especially not humans. He looked at the faces around him, warriors, scientists, and engineers who had grown up on humanity's harsh worlds. They were the products of millions of years of evolution in Earth's deadly environment. "We're going to give the galaxy a lesson in Deathworld tactics," Torres announced. "It's time to show them why Earth's children are the most dangerous species in the universe." The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Villani system with the precision of a military operation. 50 warships materialized in formation, their dark hulls gleaming under the light of the blue star. But what they saw made every crew member's blood run cold. The battle had already begun. "Admiral sensors are detecting multiple explosions on the planet's surface," reported Lieutenant Commander Nova Sterling from her tactical station. "The Havrock are bombarding Villani cities." Admiral Torres gripped the command rail tighter. Through the view screen, he could see the beautiful blue world of Villani Prime under attack. Massive Havrock warships hung in orbit like metal vultures, firing destructive beams at the defenseless planet below. "How many Havrock ships?" Torres asked. 67. "Combat vessels, sir," Sterling replied. "They're using a standard orbital bombardment pattern. The Villani civilian ships are trying to evacuate, but many are being destroyed." Captain Morrison stepped beside the Admiral. "Sir, we're outnumbered, and they have the tactical advantage. They control the high orbit." Torres studied the tactical display. The Havrock fleet was massive, each ship larger than anything in the human fleet. But something about their formation bothered him. They were arranged in a perfect attack line, following textbook procedures. "They're not expecting a fight," Torres realized. "Look at their positioning. They're set up for bombardment, not ship-to-ship combat." On the surface of Villani Prime, Commander Yalan watched the sky burn from his emergency bunker. The Havrock had arrived 3 days ago and immediately began their attack. The beautiful crystal cities were being reduced to ruins, and millions of his people were trapped. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the outer system," reported Officer Dex, his voice filled with excitement. "It's not Havrock. The signal is coming from unknown ships." Yellen's heart jumped. Could it be the humans? "The transmission is using the same mathematical patterns we sent in our distress call," Dex confirmed. "Sir, I think our message was received." Meanwhile, aboard the Havrock command ship, Warlord Krex stood before his tactical display, watching the destruction of another world.
Oh.
The Villani had proven even weaker than expected. Their pathetic evacuation attempts were almost insulting. "Warlord, we're detecting new ships entering the system," announced his tactical officer. 50 vessels, unknown configuration. Krex barely looked up from his reports. "It's probably Villani, reinforcements from another world. Destroy them."
Sir, these
"Ships are not Villani design. They appear to be a completely unknown species." Now Krex paid attention. He walked to the display and studied the incoming ships. They were smaller than Havrock vessels, but moved with military precision. Their hulls were dark and angular, built for war rather than exploration. "Send them a standard warning," Krex ordered. "Tell them to leave immediately or be destroyed." The human fleet received the Havrock transmission within minutes. The message was simple and brutal. Surrender or die. It was clearly a species used to being obeyed without question. "Admiral, we're also receiving a transmission from the planet," reported Communications Officer Davis. "It's from the Villani. They're thanking us for coming and offering to share tactical data." Torres made his decision quickly. Open channels to both the Havarok and Villani simultaneously. It's time for first contact. The communication screens activated, showing two very different alien faces. On one side was Commander Yalan, a tall, elegant being with blue skin and large, intelligent eyes. On the other was Warlord Krex, a massive creature with armored hide and predatory features. "I am Admiral Torres of the Human Federation," Torres announced. "This is the Earth Fleet responding to the Villani distress call." Commander Yalan's eyes filled with hope. "Admiral, we are grateful beyond words. The Havarok have been destroying our world for 3 days. We have no weapons, no way to fight back." Warlord Krex laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Humans. I have never heard of this species. You have made a mistake coming here, Admiral. The Villani belong to the Havarok Empire now. Leave immediately, or share their fate." Torres studied both aliens carefully. The Villani were clearly peaceful, refined beings who had never known war. The Havarok were natural predators used to intimidating their enemies into submission. "Warlord Krex, I'm giving you one chance," Torres said calmly. "Stop your attack on the Villani and withdraw from the system. You have 10 minutes to comply." Krex's eyes widened in disbelief. No species had ever spoken to the Havarok with such boldness. "You dare to threaten me? I command 300 warships. I have conquered worlds while your species was still learning to make fire." "Commanded 300 ships," Torres corrected. "I count 67, and those odds aren't as bad as you think." The Havarok warlord stood to his full height, towering over the communication screen. "I will enjoy adding your species to our slave worlds. Your ships will be destroyed, and your people will serve the Havarok Empire for 1,000 years." Torres remained calm. That's an interesting threat from someone who's never fought a Deathworld species. Deathworld. Krex paused. The term was known in Galactic history, but Deathworld species were rare and dangerous. Commander Yalan Torres said, turning to the Villani. "Please transmit all tactical data about Havarok weapons and defenses." "We're going to need it," Yalan nodded quickly. "Sending now, Admiral. Shields are strongest at the front and weakest at the engine sections. Their weapons are powerful, but have limited firing arcs." The data flowed into the human fleet's computers. Within minutes, the tactical officers had analyzed Havarok ship designs and weapon systems. The enemy had superior firepower but poor maneuverability. "Interesting," Torres murmured. "They're built for intimidation, not actual combat." Warlord Krex grew impatient. "Enough talk. All ships, prepare to destroy the human fleet. Show them the power of the Havarok Empire." The Havarok ships began turning toward the human fleet, their massive weapons charging. Energy readings spiked across the system as the alien warships prepared for battle. "Admiral, they're powering weapons," reported Lieutenant Commander Sterling. "Multiple targeting locks detected." Torres looked at the tactical display one more time. 67 Havarok ships against 50 human vessels. On paper, it should be an easy victory for the Havarok. But they had never faced humans before. "All ships, battle stations," Torres commanded. "Prepare for combat. Communications. Send a message to Earth Command." "What should the message say?" "Sir," asked Communications Officer Davis. Torres smiled grimly. "Tell them that humanity has made contact with alien life, and we're about to give them a demonstration of Deathworld tactics." The human fleet spread into combat formation, their movements coordinated and precise. Each ship took position according to plans that had been practiced for weeks during the journey. "Sir, the Havarok are firing," Sterling announced. Energy beams lanced across space toward the human ships. But where the Havarok expected to see explosions and destruction, they saw something impossible. The human fleet scattered like a school of fish, each ship moving in a different direction. "How are they moving so fast?" Krex demanded from his command. His tactical officer checked the readings twice. "Sir, their acceleration rates are impossible. Those GI forces should kill any crew, but the humans weren't just evading." As the Havarok ships fired their first volley, the human fleet was already moving into attack position. They're smaller, faster. Ships darted between the larger Havarok vessels like wolves attacking a herd. "All ships," Torres commanded, You are weapons free. Show them what Deathworlders can do. The first human weapons fire lit up the darkness of space like deadly fireworks. Railgun rounds traveling at impossible speeds punched through Havarok's shields as if they were paper. The alien ships built to intimidate rather than fight agile. Opponents found themselves under attack from directions they had never considered. Impossible. Warlord Krex roared as 3 of his ships exploded in quick succession. How are they penetrating our shields? His tactical officer stared at the readings in disbelief. Sir, they're using kinetic weapons at relativistic speeds. Our energy shields can't deflect solid matter moving that fast. The human fleet moved like a pack of predators, each ship covering another as they struck at the Havarok formation. Captain Sophia Reyes piloted her stealth fighter through the chaos. Her small craft invisible to Havarok sensors. Ghost Squadron. This is Ghost Leader. She transmitted to her fighter wing. We're going for the command ship. Stay low and use the debris field for cover. Her squadron of 12 fighters darted between the massive Havarok vessels, too small and fast for the enemy weapons to track. The Havok had never faced opponents who used hit-and-run tactics. They were used to enemies who stood and fought in traditional battle lines. On the EU's Terran Hammer, Major Lisa Chen prepared her Marines for the most dangerous mission of their lives. The ship's assault pods were ready to launch, each one carrying 12 heavily armed soldiers. Remember your training, Chen told her troops over the communication system. Havarok ships have artificial gravity and atmosphere. Once we breach their holes, we fight room by room. These aliens have never faced humans in close combat. Colonel Marcus Webb, the leader of the Orbital Assault Division, checked his weapons one final time. His team was about to attempt something that no species had ever tried, boarding Havarok warships during active combat. Teams Alpha through Delta. Prepare for launch, Webb commanded. Target the damaged Havarok cruiser. Intelligence reports show their security systems are failing. The assault pods shot out from the human ships like bullets, their armored shells designed to punch through enemy hulls. The Havarok point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but the pods were too small and moved too fast. Meanwhile, the main battle continued to rage. Admiral Torres watched from his command bridge as his ships demonstrated the advantages of Deathworld evolution. Human pilots could withstand GI forces that would kill most aliens. Human reaction times, honed by millions of years of surviving Earth's predators, were faster than Havarok response systems. Admiral, the enemy is trying to reform their battle line, reported Lieutenant Commander Sterling. They're pulling back to create distance. Torres smiled. The Havarok were doing exactly what he expected. They were trying to use their superior firepower at long range, where their larger ships had an advantage. All ships. Activate Ghost Protocol, Torres ordered. The human fleet suddenly seemed to vanish. Advanced stealth technology, developed from decades of fighting in Earth's asteroid belts, made the ships nearly invisible to Havarok sensors. The enemy found themselves firing at shadows. Where did they go? Krex demanded. His tactical display showed empty space where the human fleet had been moments before. Sir, we're detecting massive electromagnetic interference, his sensor officer reported. They're jamming our targeting systems. The first assault pod smashed through the hull of a damaged Havarok cruiser with the force of a meteor. Colonel Webb and his team poured through the breach, their powered armor allowing them to move in the ship's heavy gravity. The Havarok crew had never seen anything like humans in combat. Webb's soldiers moved with deadly precision, their enhanced reflexes and training making them unstoppable in close quarters. The aliens were strong and tough, but they fought as individuals. Humans fought as a coordinated unit. As Sector 7 secured, Webb reported as his team cleared another compartment. Moving toward the bridge, Havarok tried to stop the human boarding parties with security teams, but it was hopeless. Humans had evolved fighting each other in countless wars. They understood tactics, teamwork, and adaptation in ways the Havarok couldn't comprehend. Captain Reyes and her fighter squadron reached the Havarok command ship just as its shields failed under bombardment from human destroyers. Her fighters carried special weapons designed for precise strikes, nuclear charges that could disable a ship without destroying it completely. Ghost Squadron, target the command tower, Reyes ordered. We need Krex alive for interrogation. Her fighters dove toward the massive Havrock flagship, dodging defensive fire with maneuvers that would be impossible for most alien pilots. The nuclear charges detonated against the ship's superstructure, crippling its command systems. Inside the Havrock command ship, emergency lights flashed as systems failed throughout the vessel. Warlord Krex found himself trapped on a bridge that was rapidly losing power and life support. All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance, he ordered desperately. Reform the battle line and prepare for long-range bombardment.
Out.
But his remaining ships were scattered and damaged. The human fleet had struck like lightning, targeting weak points and using tactics the Havrock had never encountered. Nearly half of Krex's ships were destroyed or disabled. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human admiral. His communication." Officer reported. Torres appeared on the screen again, but now he looked different. This wasn't the diplomatic figure from before. This was a warrior who had just demonstrated the power of his species. "Warlord Krex, I offered you a chance to withdraw peacefully," Torres said calmly. "You chose to fight instead. Now, you've seen what happens when you threaten a species under human protection." Krex tried to maintain his dignity despite the destruction. "Around him, this isn't over, human. The Havrock Empire has thousands of ships. You have won one battle, but you cannot win the war." "Maybe not," Torres admitted. "But we've learned something important about your ships, your tactics, and your weaknesses. Every battle will be easier than this one. On the planet below, Commander." Yalan watched in amazement as the human fleet systematically dismantled the Havrock forces. The aliens who had seemed invincible just hours ago were now retreating in disorder. "Are they doing this?" Officer Dex asked in wonder. "They're predators," Yalan realized. "Not like the Havrock, who use brute force. The humans are intelligent predators. They study their prey and strike at the perfect moment." The battle was turning into a rout. Human ships pursued fleeing Havrock vessels, destroying them one by one. The enemy's superior numbers meant nothing when they couldn't coordinate their attacks or defend against human tactics. Major Chen's Marines had secured 3 Havrock ships, capturing valuable intelligence and prisoners. Colonel Webb's assault teams were teaching the galaxy a new lesson that humans were just as dangerous inside enemy ships as they were in space combat. "Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting new contacts," Sterling suddenly announced.
Multiple.
Ships dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge. Torres felt his blood turn cold. Through the tactical display, he could see the massive energy signatures of an approaching fleet. These ships were even larger than the ones they had just fought. "How many?" he asked, though he already knew the answer would not be good. "Over 500 ships, sir," Sterling replied quietly. "It's the main Havrock fleet, and they're carrying something we've never seen before. A ship the size of a small moon." Torres stared at the readings. They had won their first battle against alien forces, but the real test was just beginning. The Havrock Empire had sent everything they had to crush this new threat to their dominance. "All ships, regroup on my position," Torres commanded. "It looks like we're about to find out just how deadly Deathworlders really are." The massive Havrock reinforcement fleet emerged from hyperspace like a dark tide of destruction. Over 500 warships, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything the humans had faced before. At the center of the formation was a ship so enormous it blocked out the stars, the Planet Killer, a weapon capable of destroying entire worlds. Emperor Thrax stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical display with cold fury. The reports from Warlord Krex had been humiliating. The unknown species had defeated Havrock forces using primitive kinetic weapons and impossible tactics. "Show me these humans," Thrax commanded. The view screen displayed the human fleet regrouping. Near Villani Prime, 50 ships, many of them damaged from the previous battle, facing an armada 10 times their size. To Emperor Thrax, it looked like suicide. "They're smaller than I expected," he said dismissively. "How did Krex lose to such a weak force?" General Vextar, his chief military advisor, studied the human formations carefully. "My Emperor, there. Ships move in ways that should be impossible. Our sensors detected acceleration rates that would kill any known species. Impossible, Thrak replied. No biological organism can survive such forces. But he was wrong. On the bridge of the UES, Vengeance Admiral Torres was pushing his crew to their limits. The G-forces from their evasive maneuvers would have killed most aliens instantly. But humans had evolved on a world where survival meant adaptation. All ships maintained defensive formation, Torres ordered. We need to buy time while our engineers work on the surprise. In the engineering sections of every human ship, teams worked frantically on a desperate plan. Chief Engineer Pavel Volkov had discovered something interesting about captured Havrock technology. It could be turned against its creators. Admiral, we've finished modifying the Havrock energy cores, Volkov reported. If we can get close enough to their planet killer, we can overload their own power systems. Torres nodded grimly. It was a suicide mission, but it might be their only chance to save the Villani and stop the Havrock Empire from learning too much about human capabilities. How close do we need to get? Torres asked. Within 1 kilometer of their main reactor? Volkov replied. The ship attempting the mission won't survive the explosion. On the planet below, Commander Yalan watched the approaching fleet with despair. Even after witnessing human combat abilities, he couldn't see how 50 ships could defeat 500. Commander, the humans are transmitting, Officer Dex reported. Admiral Torres appeared on their screen, but his expression was calm and determined. Commander Yalan, we need you to do something for us. Prepare your strongest communication array to broadcast on all frequencies. What message should we send? Yalan asked. Tell the galaxy what happened here today, Torres replied. Tell them that the Havrock Empire can be defeated. Tell them that Earth stands with any species that values freedom. Emperor Thrak grew impatient. As his fleet moved into attack position, humans maintained their defensive formation, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. He decided to end this quickly. Activate the planet killer, Thrak commanded. Target the human fleet. I want them vaporized completely. The massive weapon began charging, energy readings spiking across the system. The planet killer was designed to crack planets in half, but it would serve just as well to destroy a small fleet. Admiral, they're powering their super weapon, Lieutenant Commander Sterling reported. Energy output is off the charts. Torres made his final decision. All ships, except Vengeance, full retreat to the outer system. Execute Plan Omega. Captain Morrison looked at his admiral in shock. Sir, you can't seriously be considering ramming that thing. It's the only way, Torres replied. 1 ship to save 2 species. That's a trade any human would make. But Torres had underestimated his crew. Throughout the fleet, ship captains made the same decision. Captain Sophia Reyes broke formation in her fighter, diving toward the planet killer. Colonel Webb's assault teams prepared for one final boarding action. Major Chen's Marines readied themselves for a ground assault on the weapons control systems. Sir, all ships are refusing to withdraw, Morrison reported with pride. The fleet is requesting permission to attack. Torres felt a surge of emotion. This was what made humans different from other species. They didn't fight just for victory. They fought for each other, for ideals, for the future of life itself. All ships, final attack formation, Torres commanded. We're going to show the galaxy what Deathworlders are really capable of. The human fleet charged directly at the massive Havrock Armada. It should have been the end of humanity's first space battle. But the humans had one final surprise. As the fleets closed distance, the human ships suddenly split apart. Each vessel revealed hidden modifications, stealth generators, enhanced engines, and weapons that had been secretly upgraded during their journey. The humans hadn't just been preparing for battle, they had been adapting their technology, based on what they learned about their enemies. Impossible. Emperor Thrak roared, as human ships seemed to teleport through his formation. How are they moving through our shields? Chief Engineer Volkov had discovered that Havrock shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not solid matter. Traveling at extreme speeds, human ships, built lighter and faster than anything the Havrock had encountered, could literally fly through the enemy's defenses. Captain Reyes led her fighter squadron straight into the planet. Killer's superstructure. The massive weapon was so large that it had its own defensive systems. But they were designed to stop other capital ships, not small, fast fighters. Ghost Squadron, target the main reactor chamber, Reyes transmitted. We only get one shot at this. Her fighters dove into the weapon's interior, dodging automated defenses and structural beams. The planet killer was like a hollow moon filled with machinery and power conduits. At its center was the reactor that could destroy worlds. Colonel Webb's assault teams had boarded 3 Havrok ships simultaneously, creating chaos in the enemy fleet. The Havrok had never faced opponents who could fight effectively in zero gravity, heavy gravity, and toxic atmospheres equally well. All teams, plant the charges and get out. Webb commanded as his Marines fought their way to the enemy ship's reactor cores. The explosions began moments later. Havrok ships throughout the formation began dying as human boarding parties sabotaged their power systems from within. The aliens had superior numbers, but humans had superior adaptability. Emperor Thrak watched his fleet disintegrate around him. These humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They turned every disadvantage into an advantage, every defeat into a lesson for the next battle. All ships withdraw, he finally commanded. Full retreat. But it was too late. Captain Reyes had reached the planet killer's reactor core. The nuclear charges her squadron carried were small compared to the massive weapon, but they were precisely placed to cause a chain reaction. This is Ghost Leader, she transmitted to the fleet. Mission accomplished. Tell Earth that we remembered our training. The planet killer exploded like a second star, taking dozens of Havrok ships with it. The shockwave scattered the enemy fleet and sent Emperor Thrak's flagship tumbling through space. When the light faded, the human fleet still held the field. Damaged, outnumbered, but victorious. They had defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy through courage, intelligence, and the deadly skills learned on humanity's harsh world. Commander Yalin activated his communication array as Admiral Torres had requested. His message went out across the galaxy to every species, every world, every civilization that had lived in fear of the Havrok Empire. This is Vellani Prime, he broadcast. Today, warriors from a world called Earth stood against the Havrok Empire and won. The galaxy has new protectors. Deathworlders have come to the stars and they fight for freedom. The message would travel for years, reaching species that had never heard of humans or Earth. It would inspire rebellions on 100 worlds and give hope to civilizations that had thought themselves doomed. Admiral Torres stood on his damaged bridge, looking out at the stars. Humanity had won its first interstellar war, but he knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of threats and wonders that Earth's children would face in the years to come. Communications? Send a message to Earth Command, Torres ordered. What should it say, sir? Asked the communications officer. Torres smiled. Tell them that humanity has taken its place among the stars, and tell them to send more ships. The galaxy is going to need us.